Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fluent English with Podcast. I'm your host, Sophie.
And I'm Alan. Happy to be here with you again today.
On Fluent English with Podcast, we help you improve your English listening and speaking skills through conversations.
That's right. By listening to real-life conversations about different topics, you'll pick up new vocabulary and expressions naturally.
You'll also hear how native speakers use these words and phrases in everyday situations.
So whether you're a beginner or an intermediate learner, this podcast can help you become a more confident English speaker.
Today, we're diving into a topic that can be exciting, complicated, and sometimes even risky: workplace romances.
Have you ever heard stories about people falling in love with a coworker?
Exactly. Workplace romances are a common experience, but they can also come with challenges.
Throughout this podcast, we'll be exploring the pros and cons of dating someone you work with.
We'll also hear from special guests who will share their personal experiences and advice on workplace relationships.
Before we meet our guests, let's learn some key vocabulary words related to the topic.
Workplace. Your office or the place where you work.
Colleague. A person you work with.
8. To go out with someone romantically.
Relationship. A romantic connection between two people.
Break up to end a romantic relationship. So, we're diving into the world of workplace romances. Our first guest is Michael, a software engineer from California. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sophie. Hi, Alan. Thanks for having me.
Great. Michael, you mentioned meeting your wife at your old workplace. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that experience shaped your view on workplace romances?
Sure. Working on that intense software project together definitely brought us closer. We were under a lot of pressure, but we also had a lot of fun collaborating and problem-solving together. There was a sense of camaraderie and trust that built up over time.
Interesting. So, the shared experience of the project created a strong bond?
Exactly. It started with late-night brainstorming sessions and turned into friendly chats about things outside of work. We realized we had a lot in common, and eventually our feelings went beyond just being colleagues.
So the close working relationship blossomed into a romantic one.
Yes, it did. Looking back, the project was challenging, but it also led to something amazing. However, I know workplace romances aren't always sunshine and roses.
That's a good point, Michael. We'll definitely explore the potential downsides of dating a coworker. Michael, our software engineer guest, shared how his project experience blossomed into a happy marriage.
But of course, not all workplace romances have fairy tale endings. Let's hear from another guest, Lisa, who works in marketing. Lisa, welcome.
Hi, Ellen. Hi, Sophie. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Lisa, you mentioned having a less-than-ideal experience with a workplace romance. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Sure. I dated a guy in the sales department for a while. At first, things were exciting. We'd grab lunch together, sneak in quick chats throughout the day, and discovered a surprising amount in common outside of work. It felt like a genuine connection.
Lunchtime rendezvous and shared interests, that sounds promising. But then what happened?
Unfortunately, things took a turn for the complicated when we broke up. It wasn't a messy public drama, but the lingering awkwardness hung heavy in the air. We worked in different departments, but occasionally had to collaborate on projects. Suddenly, those meetings became tense and filled with forced small talk.
Wow, that sounds uncomfortable. So the breakup impacted your professional dynamic?
Absolutely. The office wasn't big enough to completely avoid each other, and the constant reminder of our failed relationship made working together strained and stressful. It definitely affected my overall work experience. Thankfully, after a few weeks, things settled down a bit. We weren't best friends, but we managed to find a way to be professional with each other.
This highlights a potential downside of workplace romances, the possibility of awkward encounters and a strained professional environment if things don't work out. However, your story also shows that with time and maturity, things can improve.
Thanks for sharing your honest experience, Lisa. We've been exploring the world of workplace romances, hearing from Michael about his successful experience and Lisa about the challenges that can arise.
So before we jump into navigating these situations, let's get some final thoughts from Michael. Michael, any advice for those considering a workplace romance?
Sure. First, be sure to check your company's policy on dating coworkers. Some companies have restrictions, especially for supervisors and subordinates.
That's a very important point. It's always best to know the rules before getting involved.
Absolutely. Second, take things slow. Just because you work together doesn't mean you have to rush into a relationship. Get to know the person outside of work and see if there's a real connection.
Taking time to build a foundation outside of the office environment is great advice.
Finally, be prepared for the possibility that things might not work out. If you do break up, you'll need to find a way to maintain a professional working relationship.
That's a mature perspective, Michael. Thanks for sharing your insights.
So we've heard the good, the bad, and the awkward of workplace romances. Now let's say you've decided to pursue a relationship with a coworker. Here are some tips to keep things professional.
1. Discretion is key. Avoid public displays of affection in the workplace. Keep your lunch dates and personal conversations out of the office.
Now let's listen to a conversation in a break room at a busy office. Two colleagues, Jessica and David, are talking quietly in a corner.
So that presentation went well this morning, don't you think? The client seemed really impressed.
Absolutely. We make a great team. Maybe we should celebrate with dinner tonight? There's a new Italian place downtown I've been wanting to try.
That sounds great, but maybe keep it low-key, just colleagues celebrating a successful project, right?
Of course. Just colleagues enjoying some good food. How about I pick you up after work?
Sounds like a plan. Just let me know when you're on your way. Oh, shoot, I have another meeting in 5 minutes. See you later.
Yeah, see you later. Good luck with your meeting.
This conversation between Jessica and David shows how to keep workplace interactions friendly but professional, even when there's a romantic connection. Notice how they avoid public displays of affection and keep the dinner plans casual, mentioning it as a way to celebrate their work success.
Exactly. Let your work performance speak for itself, and avoid any behavior that could be seen as favoritism.
2. Maintain boundaries. If things don't work out, be mature and avoid workplace drama. Focus on your professional responsibilities.
Now we have this conversation in a hallway at an office building a few weeks later. Jessica and David, now former partners, bump into each other walking in opposite directions. They both look slightly awkward.
Hi, David. Didn't expect to see you here so late.
Hey, Jessica. Yeah, finishing up some reports. You too?
Same here. Deadlines, you know. Well, good luck with your reports.
Thanks, you too. Listen, if you need any help with anything on your project, don't hesitate to ask.
Thanks, David. I'll keep that in mind.
This short conversation shows how Jessica and David are maintaining professional boundaries after their breakup. They keep the interaction brief and polite, focusing on work instead of their personal lives.
Remember, even if your relationship status changes, your professional goals shouldn't. Always be respectful and prioritize your work responsibilities.
So, we've heard success stories and the everyday challenges of dating a colleague, but what happens when things get messy?
Joining us today is Sarah, who has a cautionary tale to share. Sarah, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You mentioned your experience with a workplace romance had some unintended consequences. Can you elaborate on that?
Certainly, it began innocently enough with some light flirting with my boss, who was unfortunately married. Initially, it felt exciting and like a secret validation of my skills. But as the flirtation escalated, a dark cloud of guilt settled over me.
That's a common theme in these situations. The initial thrill can quickly turn into something more complicated.
Exactly, Alan. The secrecy became a burden, and the emotional toll was significant. My work, which I usually excelled at, began to suffer. The constant worry about getting caught was paralyzing.
It sounds like the stress impacted your professional well-being. Did it affect the workplace environment as well?
Unfortunately, yes. Rumors started swirling, and the office became a tense and gossipy place. It was a toxic atmosphere that made coming to work a daily struggle.
Wow, that's a dramatic shift from the initial excitement. What advice would you give to someone considering a similar path?
Without a doubt, I would strongly advise against it. The emotional roller coaster and potential professional consequences are simply not worth the risk. There are plenty of opportunities to find love outside the office. Especially avoid getting involved with someone you report to, particularly if they're married.
Thank you so much for sharing your honest story, Sarah. It's a powerful reminder to prioritize professionalism and ethical conduct in the workplace.
And what happened next, Sarah? Did you find a way to cope with the situation?
The constant stress and negativity were taking a toll on my mental health. I tried to stay professional, but the whispers and awkward glances made it impossible to feel comfortable. Ultimately, I realized the best course of action was to find a new job.
That's a tough decision, but sometimes it's necessary to prioritize your well-being. Did leaving the company help?
Absolutely. Starting fresh in a new environment allowed me to heal and focus on my career. Looking back, the entire experience was a valuable lesson. It taught me the importance of maintaining clear boundaries and prioritizing my professional happiness.
Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your experience.
Let's take a lighter approach now and consider a situation where feelings might be developing between colleagues, but they haven't acted on them yet.
Now let's listen to a conversation on a bustling office kitchen. Two colleagues, Emily, a graphic designer, and Brian, a marketing specialist, are making coffee.
Wow, that presentation went well. Thanks again for helping me practice my timing, Brian.
No problem, Emily. You did great. Those visuals were really impressive.
Thanks, you helped a lot with the marketing jargon. We make a good team, don't we?
Definitely. We work well together.
So, big plans for the weekend?
Oh, the usual. Catch up on some emails, maybe a hike with friends.
Sounds like fun. Well, I better get back to my design edits. See you around, Brian.
Yeah, see you later, Emily.
This is a subtle example of a potential spark between colleagues. Notice how the compliment lingers a bit, and the silence suggests a comfortable space between them.
Exactly. So we've explored the pros and cons of workplace romances, from success stories to cautionary tales like Sarah's.
Absolutely. Workplace romances can be complicated, but with clear boundaries, open communication, and a healthy dose of caution, they can sometimes work out.
However, it's important to remember that your professional success should always be your top priority. If a relationship becomes a distraction or creates a hostile work environment, it's best to end it.
Exactly. Thank you to our guests, Michael, Lisa, and Sarah, for sharing your honest experiences.
We hope this discussion has helped you navigate the complex world of workplace romances. You've been listening to Fluent English with Podcast. Join us next time for more engaging English learning experiences.